Good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live.
You need to go to the hospital.
Welcome back to the show. Viewers, welcome back to episode 193. Um, we have a special guest this evening joining us somewhere in the Los Angeles area. Chris Birky, welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live this evening.
Thanks, Jay. It's a great pleasure.
And of course, we have Chris Morrison joining us this evening, coming in from the Phoenix Valley area. Kamalu hopes to join us. He's having some technical difficulties. He may join us a little bit later on. But as our viewers drop into tonight's episode 193, I want to just take a moment here to share what our show topic is on tonight. It's all about from emotional awareness to becoming a conscious observer. And so, as we wait for more viewers to join us, viewers, if you hear anything that you like or love, you know what to do with that. Drop it down into the comment section. And if you have any questions, we will do our part to answer as many questions that may pop up as possible. But in the meantime, Chris Birky, being that you're in a hot seat tonight, you're new to Real Men Real Talk Live. You're sitting on the top shelf with me, and in our production meeting just a couple of 24 hours ago, you picked this topic, which is all about from emotional awareness to becoming the conscious observer. I want to invite you to share with all of us, why did you pick this topic? Why does it have a meaning in your life? And why don't you kick us off, get us hot, light us up, and get the show going tonight?
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, and I think I wanted to open up with a quote. It's by Peter Crone, and this quote has really shaped a massive part of my life and really helped me shift from being in, I would say, in like a victim state into
Mm.
empowered, change my life state. And so the quote goes like this: life will present you with people, places, and circumstances to reveal where you're not free.
Mm.
And what that quote really means to me, as I understand it, is life is constantly creating circumstances to help you see where aspects of you aren't free. You're kind of stuck. And so for me, what that meant was I've been there's been lots of loss in my life. I've had family members, parents, sisters, multiple friends pass away in my life, and it created a lot of turmoil, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of emotions that I never had experienced before, or never allowed myself to experience. And so it wasn't until that quote that it really opened my eyes to all of these circumstances are really coming to support me and setting myself free from all of these emotional incongruences. I was into doing lots of partying and alcohol and sexual acts and all kinds of things, trying to I didn't know this at the time, but trying to avoid these emotions that I didn't know how to process. And it was in these experiences that as soon as I started to see, wait a minute, these aren't necessarily they're not such negative experiences, but they're actually helping me see where the actual invitation to supporting myself really was. And that quote was really that piece of me that really helped create the understanding that I'm actually supposed to go into those, into loss and into, learning about how, being in an alcoholic environment growing up, how all of those dynamics really shaped and created opportunities for me to grow and expand into to the person I am today. And I'm, at the time I wasn't, it was very challenging with those experiences. But now, as I've, learned how to process those emotions, or what I call surf those emotions, I've really, embraced those emotions as powerful experiences that support my growth, my rapid growth, because the emotions I wasn't avoiding anymore, but really embracing them and using them as fuel to progress as an individual. So, emotional awareness to me was really the precursor to my exponential growth in becoming, a balanced human, a balanced man, having, improved relationships, and really creating the confidence and having tools to support myself rather than avoiding and running from these emotional experiences.
Mm.
Well,
I think we lost your audio, Jay.
Kamalo says, be grateful for your triggers. They point you where you are not free.
yep.
And what's really interesting, Chris Birky, is I love Peter Crone. That's another thing we have in common, you and I. We never landed on this conversation before, and the time that we know each other now. But I was introduced to Peter Crone through a Heal documentary,
Yep.
through the Kelly Gora's movie back. I think that was early 2017, and I spent some time with Peter, and I also spent some time investing, listening to him, listening to his knowledge, his teachings, his life reality, and I absolutely, like you, enjoyed listening to his message.
Yep.
For those of you that may not know, how do Chris Birky and I know each other? Well, you could see it says Sedona Soul Adventures. I was introduced to Chris Birky when I joined Sedona Soul Adventures as a practitioner, and it's been such an honor to work with you, to collaborate with you, to work with clients, and to make a difference in men and women's lives. And it's been such an honor to be on this journey with you, Chris Birky, as well as you, Chris Morrison. I don't want you to feel left out in any way.
Oh no, I I could never feel that way with you. That's just that simple, my man.
Thank
You've
you.
got so many beautiful people in your life, and never less than ever. So not with you.
Thank you, sir. Chris Morrison, I want to invite you to piggyback off of what you heard Chris Birky say, from emotional awareness to conscious observer. How is this? How is it affecting and impacting your life today? Because I suspect you're probably showing up a lot different today than you did 2 years ago in your life.
Oh,
And what
absolutely.
role has um, embracing becoming having emotional awareness and or becoming a conscious observer? How has it affected you in your lifetime, in your life now?
Hmm. For me, emotional awareness um, has really helped me to how do I say this correctly? Um, Being aware of my emotions a lot of times helps me see where I need to lean into growth, right? Like if things are uh, coming up for me and uh, I'm not able to kind of choose that's the emotion that I want to feel in that moment, then that means that it's kind of something that I uh, uh, something here. Here's an easy example for this morning. Running a little bit late. My sons are not getting in the car, and I am frustrated, and I see it, but I am not able to just breathe through that, right? And I am just really getting worked up about just getting in the car and getting, and I'm not using, being the person that I declare myself to be. And because I have somewhere I want to be, and I've got, so that's something like catching myself in those states, catching those emotions really sets the path for where I need to go do work, and sets the path for where I need to lean into another spot where I can move back, right? Where I can step back and say, oh, we're going to be late, right? How can I not get attached to the thing that is happening in that moment and just go that, there's some things that we need to go and look at and work on so that we don't end up in these places, because they are an emotional thing for me. And instead of having to go apologize to my boys, like, man, I really hate when I get irritated like that, try to build into something that, is enroll my boys into, how do we make sure that we don't end up in this place? How do we make sure that we, this is something that's really hard for dad. It's not about you. It's about me not being the leader in this instance that I need to be. And so for me, the emotional, that's where I've been really leaning into my emotional stuff.
If I may interject here, I'm going to paraphrase what I just heard you say, Chris,
Okay.
is that in the moment thereafter, however long thereafter is, what I heard you just describe is you took accountability for your behavior.
Yes. Yes, I am absolutely taking accountability for my behavior when I am acting out of alignment with who I am. 100%. And then it's also what work do I need to do so that I don't continue to act out of alignment, right? It's just like the old recovery adage, right? Like we don't want to hear a sorry. This isn't a sorry type of thing. This is how can I amend my behavior so that I can show up better.
I'm curious, Chris, why do you think after about the 10th time of hearing I'm sorry from, whether it be a child, your partner, a friend, anyone in your life, why after about the 10th time does it lose its impact?
I think we start to feel unheard. Like we don't feel seen, we don't feel heard. It starts to go into this space where we, our thing, whatever, if our feelings, our boundaries, whatever it is, don't matter to the other person. As how, and so then it just becomes an even bigger thing, because now we've been abandoned in some emotional, request or requirement.
Okay. How about you, Chris Birky? What's your relationship with the words, I'm sorry? How does that resonate? Do you feel uncomfortable with that? Is that unsettling at times, or does that have meaning at times, or most of the time, or?
Yeah, I would say, I'm sorry would then follow up with, you know, with an understanding to what's sorry. But, then at some point, if you're, desensitized to the repetition of the same I'm sorry, then it um, loses its juice. I mean, you can say I'm sorry, till you're blue in the face, but if your actions don't, back what you're actually I'm sorrying for, then for me it's one of those experiences that really loses its juice.
Yep.
And so maybe rather than I'm sorry could be replaced with I take responsibility for that da da da, and that for me feels more, because for me responsibility is ultimate, being in my ultimate power, like authentic power is, being responsible for, what I'm doing and how I'm showing up. And one thing that I heard you say, Chris Morrison, is you were able to recognize the frustration. That is the recognition piece is massive, right? And if the recognition, like, oh crap, I'm frustrated again, doesn't get had, then for me there hasn't been any way to evolve beyond that point, because I can't even recognize where I'm getting stuck. So I would assert, based on my personal experience, that that recognition piece is massive in emotional awareness. Where then, I think it was I did when I was doing a session with you, Jay. You mentioned, like, giving yourself permission to experience those emotions rather than immediately just declining them. So that would be something very critical in my understanding of emotional awareness, is giving my it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to process the anger, but processing it in a way that isn't projecting onto others or harming others or something along those lines. And that's where teachers, guides, and support systems can really aid in advancing what emotional awareness really means.
Beautiful. I want to take a moment here just to share with the two of you, from my perspective, when I really began to understand what is from emotional awareness to becoming a conscious observer, and why that is so critical, from at least in the life I choose to live today, is because the conscious observer is about me, and it can be slippery at times because we don't want to get into the to the rabbit hole of being judgmental. But for me, being a conscious observer is about paying attention to the words and the behaviors of that individual. And if the words are not in alignment with the behaviors, that to me is a flag. That's a yellow flag. That's a caution flag. And if I continue to witness a lack of alignment in their words spoken and their behaviors, then I have a choice to continue to engage or to kind of pull back and not engage in that relationship. Because unless we are in alignment, if our words and our behaviors are in a disalignment, then there's a discongruency there that I'm no longer comfortable with. And the reason I'm not is because of my background, where I came from. I came from a background where there was a lot of instability in the emotions, whether it was from my childhood or in my adult relationships that I had been part of in my life. And so today, part of me showing up for myself, for me loving myself enough to be able to set loving boundaries for me. And when someone's words and behaviors are not in alignment, after a couple of times, I have a choice to stay engaged in that or love them from a distance, and choose how often I want to be engaged in that. I will say this is that so many people, if you pay attention just in the next couple of days, how many people say I'm sorry all the time, strangers that you meet just in a grocery store or in a gas station, anywhere in public, as soon as they we have our first engagement with many people is I'm sorry, and they're apologizing for something they haven't done anything wrong for. And I often feel that the energy behind those two words, I'm sorry, is the energy that brings us into shame.
Hmm.
So the power of the words that we speak in our own life kind of creates the pathway for how we are living with our own self. Are we at peace, or are we living in shame and guilt every time we say I'm sorry, like we've done something wrong? And many times now when a stranger says I'm sorry to me, if if I feel like they haven't done anything wrong, I'll actually bring it to their attention. I'll just say, you know what? You don't owe me an apology. You didn't do anything wrong. And that's just a different way to embrace it, because for me, again, I had some old triggers around I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And it's not that, here's my truth too, guys. I was guilty of it in my past life too, in this lifetime. Many
Hmm.
times I was saying I'm sorry to a mate, to a partner, to a relationship that I was in. And I was misusing the word because, as you said earlier, I wasn't taking accountability. I was just apologizing, but then a day or a week later, I was right back in that same position of not taking accountability for my behavior. What do you make of that, Chris Morrison?
I really like what you just said there, taking accountability for our creation, right? My thing is when people say I'm sorry, I'm for what? What are you sorry for? Well, like I have an amazing life. This is usually an amazing interaction. Why is there anything to be sorry for? If we are here in this space, any decision that I actually had this conversation this weekend was like any decision that would have changed anywhere in my past would have probably ended up with me, because I think she was apologizing for some discomfort with exes and stuff like that. And so, and it was just like, and if anything else had changed, I would not be here having a beautiful conversation with an amazing human being. So, it's just really kind of like being conscious, right? Like for me, consciousness is being present in this exact moment right here. And so if I am being conscious in this moment, tell me what you're sorry for. If there's something more to something more to dig in there, then yeah, let's make a conversation around what can we do. Oh, hey buddy. Yes.
I want to share. I want to bring this up here. Read this out. I'm going to read this. There's a question that's coming in from Kamalu this evening. He says, "Where do you all believe the line is in relationships when you hear accountability for behavior, but behavior doesn't change? Obviously, the change doesn't always happen overnight. But coming back to his question, where do you all believe the line is in relationships where you hear accountability for the behavior, but the behavior doesn't seem to change overnight?" Who wants to take a stab at that?
I'll go on and on. So I'm gonna kick it over to CB up there, because if I where I just came from in this last week, I could take up a whole TED talk and stage and.
But before you do go there, I will say this, Chris, you matter. So I don't want you to dismiss yourself because your
I'm
voice.
not dismissing myself. I'm just giving
Okay.
somebody else some space
Okay.
and time
There you
to
go. Well,
dive into
I'll
that
circle back to you
conversation.
then. That means I'll be
So
circling back at some point.
yes, that's
Go ahead.
100%.
Go ahead, Mr. Berkey. What do you got?
Yeah, I would say progress. I think we all strive
Mm.
for progress. Doesn't have to be overnight fixes, but if there's continual, progress in the said direction, then you will have, a desired outcome, whether it's, the extremes or, step by step. Progress is what we all seek to, based on, that's what I seek is, I don't seek for, to be an overnight anything, but I do expect myself to have daily progress. And if there is daily progress, then that then eventually uh, adds to the overall outcome of where I'm going. So my short answer would be progress.
Beautiful. I like that. And progress means that we have an opportunity to practice something called patience. And that's simple, not easy, because there's always a part of us that's impatient. And a part of us that tends to be impatient is not us as the adult. It's the child within all of us that tends to get impatient. Remember the old storyline? Are we almost there yet, mommy? So when we get impatient in that relationship, it creates more havoc. And so it really takes, I'd say, some discipline on our part as men in a relationship to give that individual some rope to work on the progress piece of it. Kamalu, I want to welcome you back to Real Men Will Talk Live. You had some technical difficulties, but it's good to have you back in the studio. And so
It'll be back to
we
I did give up. It's like that.
can't hear you.
I didn't give up. Patience. No.
No, your audio's choppy. I wonder if you'd be better off without your headset, or see if your setting in StreamYard is set to whatever audio device you have on. That might be the issue.
Better. No.
Nope.
Nope.
No.
See if you
Alright.
take off the headset and see if that works better. And while you're doing that, I want to switch gears. I want to pivot right now in the show. And here's a question I want to put out here. How does processing your emotions help in your relationship conflicts? Chris Birky.
Man, that is the
Shots
one.
fired.
That is the one.
Yeah.
So
Again,
I,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll put it this way. I have the opportunity to work with, lots and lots and lots of different clients of all kinds of different backgrounds. One of the biggest things that, I hear daily is the the avoidance piece, like avoiding conflict, avoiding confrontation, avoiding this and avoiding that. And a lot of times it's, based on, for me, it's like, when I avoid stuff, it's because I'm afraid of getting rejected. I'm afraid of, getting let down or not being enough or whatever the case may be. And so, being able to, like there's another quote by a teacher named Muji. He says, "Step into the fire of self-discovery. This fire will not burn you, it will burn everything that you're not." And so it's like being able to sit in that fire of discomfort when the emotions come in allows you then to show up authentically because you gave yourself permission to, really experience the emotions. So for me, it's allowed me to then go tell, like, for example, my partner now, "Hey, I'm really ticked off right now. It's not anything, that you did personally or anything that, you've said or done specifically, but I'm ticked off. And so please don't receive it as your problem or your fault. You did something wrong." And it's really eliminated my little tantrums that I throw when they come in, and it helps me communicate that so she's not receiving it as what, she did something wrong or triggered me or something along those lines, because what's happening in here for me is all my responsibility. And if I'm able to articulate it and understand it, be more aware of it, it then helps me reduce the fires in my relationship because she's not receiving it as it's her fault.
Beautiful. I really like that, Chris. And I want to piggyback what you just shared here. What just came through for me, what hit me is that as we're talking about emotional awareness to embracing being a conscious observer, what I just heard come through you is that before we should embrace becoming a conscious observer of others outside of ourselves, I think the greatest opportunity for growth is within ourselves. Become that conscious observer of our own feelings, of our own emotions. I'll share with you guys right here. Um, one particular moment that really stood out for me, and I walked out of the room one day, and I made an announcement to my partner Mary, and the announcement was, "I'm really angry right now. I am so angry." And I didn't say it in that gentle manner. I said it with strong conviction. And Mary dropped the knife and set it down on the countertop and said to me, "What's going on? Why are you angry?" And in that moment, I caught myself. I closed my eyes so I could really tap into what is underneath the surface of anger. Because for me, and most of us as men, I'm not going to speak for the women, but in our little world here, anger is one of the easiest emotions to tap into, to access. So in that moment, I closed my eyes because what I wanted to do was tap into what's underneath the anger. And I asked myself that question. I said, "What's underneath the anger, Jay?" And what I was able to come up with was my truth. And my truth was, I was sad. I was angry at an individual for creating um, conflict with other people in my life that are really important in my life. But what I was really sad was, and I was able to then acknowledge that to Mary, I said, you know what? I'm sad. I miss my boys. I miss my sons. And in that moment, I said to her, you know what? I think I just need to get out into the wilderness. I just need to spend some time with me and kind of work through my feelings and emotions. And that's exactly what I did. And in doing so, how I worked through it, Chris Square too, was I just went into acceptance that right here, right now, it is what it is. And it doesn't mean it's permanent. It doesn't mean it's forever. But I also allowed myself to honor my feelings of sadness. And I allowed myself to stay in them until I was able to step out of them. But to me, that is the true essence of what taking accountability with our own emotional awareness as men and becoming a conscious observer is get into the habit of asking yourself, what's underneath this emotion? What is attached to this emotion? Is there an attachment or is there a connection? And then speak it and honor your truth. That was a big pivot in my life. And that wasn't that long ago. That was maybe less than 3 years ago
Hmm.
when I was able to have that conversation and really catch myself and understand that underneath the surface of anger was the truth of what I was feeling. Anger was just the easier one to access and kind of come out screaming and yelling, if I may. Does that make sense, Chris Morrison?
Yeah, no, just anger, like, the saying, anger is a secondary emotion, right? It really is. And it's, um, uh, when you initially said that, it makes me think of like, but it's the only one we're left with. Most of society doesn't want to see a sad man. They don't want one that's out there saying, I love you, and hugging and jumping around. They, for a long time, it was stoicism at best. And so anger was like, yes, we were, um, everybody knew that it wasn't right, but it was the only one that was left because all of the other ones had been taken away because they were feminine, they were gay, girly, whatever you want to label you want to put on top of that. And so, like, anger, I heard it, something in the last couple of months. It's like, what if we look at anger as just I'll be real concise with this, the emotional expression of anger, not acts in anger, just I am angry, you can tell. What if that is the same equivalent as crying? Because crying hasn't been okay. Crying has been stripped from most men. So all we got, that's all we have left. Like, not us four, right? We've made that bridge. We've turned that corner from that, that unconscious belief system and moved into like, no, I'm going, like, as I declare myself to be, right? Like, I am authentic in everything I do. There will be no filter. I will cry. I will be sad. I'll cry for joy.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that in the last coming up on 8 weeks now. A lot of tears of gratitude, man. So much.
So for me on this, just that specific aspect of it, like that's what
Beautiful.
came up for me, is that we just lean into those emotions, allow them to flow through us. If we block them up, stop them up, keep them from coming through from us, it's just turns into rot.
Here's the question now. How can we do that without creating a wildfire? Meaning we hurt that other individual that sets them off. How can we do it in a way that is less damaging to another individual in that moment?
when it talk more specific to anger, like, or just to being emotional in general? Go back to your original question that you asked, Chris, because because something came through when you asked it, and now I've kind of lost it. So there was an initial partnership question there.
The question that I had proposed was, how does processing your emotions help in your relationship conflicts?
I mean, they're essential, right? Processing my emotions, processing being, wow, I feel this. This is something we should talk about. This is, this thing, action, non-reaction, whatever it is, was not caused, the way I've been saying it lately, because I'm trying to be more intentional about my creation, is I have allowed this thing to make me feel this way. Because I am the creator of my experience. I have radical responsibility for the life I live and everything I feel and do. So I'm trying to be more specific in that, but it's, so when I have an emotion, like go back to my kids this morning, right? And you get those things. It's like you enroll them in the conversation. Wow. When we're late, I haven't been able to not move away from this really uneasy feeling that causes me to act outside of who I want to be.
Carmelo, let's give you a shot and see if your mic's any better. Can you unmute? Let's hear.
How does it sound?
I think that's better.
Better?
Yes,
Good.
sir. You're on.
Okay. Well, I think Chris touched on some really powerful things there. Main one being that anger actually does have a healthy time and place. And that the only real issue that I see with it is when we don't express it, because we don't know how to express it healthily, or we're scared to express it. And so then it bottles up, and that's what becomes a problem, is when it snaps. But in a moment where anger is triggered, I find it's usually because either I'd created some kind of expectation that wasn't met, or a boundary was crossed. And if anger is highlighting to me where someone's crossed my boundaries, or I've crossed my own boundaries, anger is one of my best friends. So I think, as with crying, as with all emotion, anger has a really powerful, healthy space in the human experience. And I think it's important when we talk about how to handle anger in a healthy way, that we don't demonize it as something that shouldn't be there.
What do you think blocks us as men from speaking our truth? Where's the block come in, Chris Birky?
Don't be a wuss. Can't show your emotions. All things that I was shared growing up. Rub some dirt on it. There's plenty of others, but it's really, anger is the only acceptable emotion that I was able to express. But then it caused havoc, and when it's not expressed appropriately. And then for me personally, that anger led to addictions, in my personal experience, because I suppressed and bottled it up. And Kamalu said something really important, which are those expectations. Like that is really a massive piece of what I'm working on even still to this day, are expectations that I project onto others. And when those expectations aren't met, that's when, I feel, hot inside, and, flustered, and I feel a lot of anger come in. And that's been a massive opportunity for me to work on, the anger piece, and, processing the anger, so that, and processing the expectations that I have on others, which means, those are these crazy expectations I have on myself as well. And although healthy to a degree where, expectations are good, it's just the attachment, to the outcome of those expectations that really gets you into trouble. Based in what's happened in my life is, When I have an expectation that's healthy, it's helped me progress and evolve rather quickly. But it's when, I have an attachment to how that expectation should unfold. That's when anger builds up in me. And so I would assert that, you know, anger has been a massively powerful tool, and as I shared on that first quote, helping me see where I'm still stuck inside, because then the anger takes you into the expectations, then expectations, will take me into the attachments to what I thought should happen, and it just keeps taking me deeper into the root of, based on my personal experience and my core stuff that I work on is, the old not good enoughs, and those deeper seated aspects that really are stemming from surface emotional experiences like anger.
What is an expectation without attachment to outcome? That doesn't totally make sense to me.
So
Who you asking the question, Kamalo?
Chris Birky.
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
So when I have an expectation of making, we'll just throw a dramatic one out there, making $1 million, right? Then I strive and strive and will work hard and create all these skills, but I haven't hit that outcome yet. And so if I were attached to making $1 million and I haven't done it yet, then I'd be crushed and would stop trying, etc.
Sure.
So for me, having the expectation of being the best human I can is a healthy process. But it's when you take a week off and you just lounge on the couch and you're not working on that, and you start beating yourself up because you have an attachment to the outcome of being the best version, and if that best version doesn't have sitting on the couch, lounging on the couch in there, then that's where the anger, etc., will follow.
That makes sense. I guess I was curious because to me when I think of the term expectation, that implies some level of attachment to an outcome. So that's where I wasn't totally sure.
I could share with you from my perspective. Expectation is a precursor for a disappointment. I really work today at living a life without attachments to outcomes. However, in order for me to do that, in order for me to embrace that way of living, part of that is no longer trying to control all the outcomes. Instead, having faith and trust in a power greater than myself, divine source, God. And just trusting that he could see what I can't see sometimes. And perhaps that expectation that I may have had that I want this so bad, whatever it is, maybe I'm not supposed to have it. Maybe I'm not supposed to have that experience. But we can't see what we can't see because that's the future. That's the future trip. So one of the ways that I've really embraced becoming a healthier conscious observer in my life is by setting healthy intentions and then turning it over to God. Meaning, I put it out there in the universe, and if I'm supposed to have that experience, guess what? It's going to show up. Not on my time. I call it divine time. That's just how I choose to live my life today. It takes a lot of pressure off of me as a man. I don't have to try to control the outcomes anymore. I could spend a little bit of time at the creek. Imagine that. I could
Well
have some
said, Jim.
fun. What's that?
Well said.
Something you said too, Jay, that caught my ear was, that maybe I'm not supposed to have that experience. Something, I just want to add something onto that, which
Please
is
do.
maybe I'm not ready to have what I want yet.
Oh,
There's something else that I need to learn first before I'll be ready for that.
what do you make of that, Morrison?
That's beautiful, or and maybe that, actually the girl that's coming through horsepower empowerment is my friend Alicia. One of the people that
Alicia,
transcended.
welcome to Real Men Real Talk Live.
Alicia.
Alicia. Yeah.
So
Alicia.
she was talking about she really wanted this motorcycle, right? And then she had like 2 experiences on Facebook where people had died and stuff like that. And so she's like, not gonna do the motorcycle, right? And because she didn't put herself in that position of taking on the motorcycle, she was able to get something else. That she was really, I think it was getting into a coaching agreement with a really, really powerful coach that then helped her get the car that she's really been wanting, right? And so it's like maybe even it's like this experience, whatever, is not in alignment with the next thing that's going to come, this bigger and better thing. And by kind of harmonizing with the universe, we allow those, I don't want to say larger, we allow the experience that's more in alignment with who we are to actually come through and come quicker into our lives. So
Would you say that then involves a state of like surrender to setting the intention and then allowing? Is that what you're?
100%.
Yeah.
She's put it a desire, right? I desire to make $1 million. But so it's like I desire to make $1 million, but I don't set a time limit on it. I don't set an exact, I will make $1 million by January 1st of 2025. It's like I want to, and what I've been saying is I want to double my income as quickly as possible. That's my desire. And so those are the ways that I've been kind of leaning into those creations.
Beautiful. I want to highlight something that that your friend here has said, because it's interesting. This has come up. I had this exact conversation today with a beautiful dear friend of mine. She says it was about listening to intuition with faith and grace. How do you interpret that, Kamala? What does that mean in your little world here?
Mhm.
What does intuition with faith and grace mean for you today? Any idea?
Yes.
I,
Intuition means intuition with faith and grace. I interpret that as listening to what my body says more than what my mind says in a moment. And then the faith part is then acting on it, even if the mind is like, I don't know how that's going to happen or how that's going to work out. And then the grace part that I hear in that is being patient with yourself as you learn to do that more. Because I think a lot of people don't always know how to check in and to listen to their now, to listen to their gut and their intuition. And so in starting to do that more, there were times where I hit corners or ended up in places where I didn't prefer to be in. And so the grace aspect came into forgiving myself for listening to things that maybe I felt in my body that were actually coming from anxiety as opposed to intuition. And then slowly over time, being able to discern with a little more clarity between the two, what is actually excitement and what is excitement disguised as anxiety.
All right. I'm gonna call you out right now, Kamalo. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to put into action, to put into words what that really means, and I'll tell you why. You are launching a brand this week. Matter of fact, tomorrow is your first event.
Yes.
How much did this play in the factor of you deciding to launch this brand right here, right now in Sedona? Again, how much did listening to your own intuition with faith and grace impact your decision to launch this brand that I believe you have a relationship with and you have passion around? So tell us more about that, will you?
Oh, gladly. I'm gonna take you guys on a little story time here. So, as I've kind of discussed throughout the show over the past couple months, especially when I was in Asheville, financially I was in a very, very challenging place. And so when I came back to Sedona, I started working more, kind of building up from zero. And still, even with money coming in, it was like a barely scraping by kind of situation. So one of the people I work with just started working at this other place in Sedona as a sales woman selling high-end beauty products, facial products. And she was talking this high game of how much money that's coming in, making anywhere from like 5 to 12 grand a month. I was like, that sounds awesome. There's so much I could do with that, you know, and the allure of that was like so appealing for a hot minute. And so I went in and I took the job, and they gave me a little trial run, thankfully. Because after day two, I was just like sitting in there like, oh, this is not me. This is so not me. And I'm like mentally trying to convince myself that I like it or that I could like it. And just so clearly the message is And for the last couple of weeks, I've been seeing all these little coins. I've been keep finding quarters that have Hawaii on the back of them, and meeting people who are just there, and seeing people wearing Hawaii shirts. My second day at work, it was like all these people with Hawaii t-shirts walked by within like a 5-minute period, right after the thought had crossed my mind of like, maybe I just need to go home. And I decided after my second day that I wasn't going to do this job anymore. And I didn't know exactly what that meant or what that looked like. And as soon as I made that decision, I was with Jay and Mary at their home. And I get this text from this woman I'd met over a month ago who was like, hey, I met this person who's really interested in what you want to do with kava, which is a Hawaiian medicine. And I would love to connect you guys. The next day, this woman comes into the store and I meet her for the first time, the person she was telling me about on the text message. And this woman asks, what do you need to start doing this here in Sedona? I'm like, I need a kanoa, I need serving bowls, I need this, that, the other thing. She's like, here, send me the link for what you want and I will get it for you. So mentally, I had no idea how this was all going to come together. I'm thinking I need to do this job that I really don't want to do in order to get money to even start something like that. And then when I let go of the job and the idea of having all this money, same day, next day, that connection was made. And now it's happening, it's starting tomorrow. This was maybe like 2 weeks ago. So that was a big one because the mind was like, I'm out of ideas here. I'm really out of ideas.
Question: what role did being a conscious observer play? What role? What was the factor as a conscious observer? How can you connect it to the story that you just shared?
being able to listen to the thoughts that were going through my mind, and then actually being able to check in with each of them and asking myself if I really believe that or not. Like, where is that coming from? That's kind of where the observer part came from.
Yeah. Is it true?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a whole-
I could tell myself I liked it, but I didn't like it.
Is this true? Do I know it's true? Right. I love that, man. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
I'm
Amen.
so excited for you, and so excited to support you on that. And yeah, man, it's this, knowing what I know about the kava space in Sedona. Like, I know that there was a kava bar that was up there and it didn't do well because the guy was in it for money. You know, and that's what it really came through from all the people that were involved in that space. And like, I know because of who you are, like, this is going to be such an amazing thing for Sedona. Like, because this is who you are. This is part of your culture. This is part of your experience. And so I am so proud of you for, like, you know, one of the things I heard this weekend was be a powerful yes or be a powerful no. Either one's okay. And so you got to, you know, make that powerful no to know this is not the job for me, so that those powerful yeses come into space. And so I'm so excited for you.
Thank you, man.
I want to take a moment here just to welcome in Sedona Lady Lee. Chris Birky, we know who this beautiful woman is. She says, IMO, a great topic, gentlemen. A conscious observer isn't attached to any outcome, but is aware of their own personal emotional behaviors. Graceful accountability, know thyself. There's that word grace again. And believe it or not, gentlemen, we're almost at the hour.
Holy
I do
wow.
want to, again, take a moment just to acknowledge and welcome Sedona Lady Lee. Chris Birky and I both know her real well. We work with her. She's another member of Sedona Soul Adventures. So welcome to Real Men Will Talk Live, Sedona Lady Lee. Chris Birky, I want to invite you to maybe, why don't you close us out tonight, since you're our special guest, whether you want to piggyback off of what she has said here. If there's something else you want to, closing thoughts around this topic.
Yeah, I just want to add another word to resemble what conscious observer is, to paint a different view, a different image. And you could also use, you know, witness, being the witness, as one of my teachers, Bear, has mentioned, using camera two to, you know, kind of see yourself through a different lens than the lens of your intellect. And so, you know, the, you know, conscious observer is that place of non-attachment. And I think that that is one of the most powerful places a person can ever be. And that's, you know, although we get attached, you know, like Kamala, your story, you were attached for a little bit to the outcome. I needed to go get this job and work. You released it, and then the universe took over, took care of you, said, "I got you." And as soon as you did, you know, life took over from there. I mean, that's just a perfect example of a real life in present day experience of how, you know, expectation or intention leads into the universe taking over and producing the right outcome for your current moment. So well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris Birky. Chris Morrison, you got 2 minutes to close us out. Closing thoughts on your end around from emotional awareness to embracing becoming that conscious observer. What does that mean for you today?
I mean, they definitely play into each other, right? Like, I need emotional awareness. I need to be, you know, kind of cognizant of what's going on so that I can move into that space of being present, you know, and so I just, for me, one is kind of a forebearer to the other. And I love that word, graceful accountability. I really, really like that. I was just kind of sitting in that, with my head is just, I am, the way that I've had it said to me before is radically responsible for my creation. And sometimes that it comes off to me in my own head as a little harsh. There's a little bit too much edge into it. A little bit more forceful than the way that I want to be in the world. And so I like that graceful accountability for my creation. It just something that just kind of landed right for me, because that's who I want to be. I want to be fully accountable for the world that I live in, who I am, but I also don't need to kind of be harsh about it or be, it can be this play, it's this movement back and forth of like, oh, let's move into this, and that's not quite right. That's not an alignment. So by knowing myself, I can figure out more quickly what's in alignment and how I can make a decision quicker and more boldly, but by, because I've been graceful and soft and learning some of the lessons that are there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Chris Morrison. Kamalu, you're up. Close us out. We got a minute. What do you got as it relates to graceful accountability or any part of tonight's topic?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off Chris Morrison. It's really important to take responsibility for our own experiences. And a big part of my journey was realizing that my emotions were no one's kuleana but my own, no one's responsibility but mine, and no one else's were mine either. But in owning and recognizing how I create my experience, it's really, really important to be soft and gentle and kind to myself in that process.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that, Kaimalu. I'm going to add my closing thoughts right here, right now, and just take a moment here to tell on myself. Here's my truth. For years, I wasn't a conscious observer. I was a hot mess, as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a sibling, as a friend, as an employer. I was a hot mess because I was not connected to myself. I was not consciously living my healthiest life. I was running, I was gunning, chasing that modern American dream,
Yeah,
full bore. And it wasn't until I had what some call a spiritual awakening at age 54 back in 2015, due to simple math. Yeah, I'm 63. It's okay. I'm okay with my age today because I embrace each year as a year of more wisdom that I'm picking up along this journey called life. But one of the greatest gifts that I have received in my own life over the past close to 9 years is embracing becoming that conscious observer with dignity and grace. And it's been a game changer because I show up very differently today than I ever did. And I'm I could tell you, listeners, if you're listening in, don't be afraid of this concept of pay more attention to your emotions and feelings. Don't be intimidated by it. Embrace it. And know this is that when you find your ability to start to be aware of your emotions and feelings and then be able to express them with grace and by taking accountability, your life will be changed forever. I live a very simple life today, but I live it with as much grace as I'm possibly able to. Each day that I'm gifted one more day of breath. It's not just what I say, it's how I show up. Every morning, I show up with my heart open. Even when I go to work, I make choices like climbing a staircase to go up to the office, to say good morning to the employees in the office. That is grace.
Mm.
That is understanding that how we show up energetically is going to impact how other people receive us and how they receive themselves in that moment. And if each one of us can take time each day for the next 30 days to be consciously aware of how are we showing up? How are we speaking to the people in the moments where we meet them, we touch them, we physically connect with them? Taking accountability, becoming a change maker in your life, we will influence change in other people's lives. We will touch them right here in our heart space.
Mm.
And so with that, I want to thank our special guest, Chris Birky, for joining us tonight on episode 193. Welcome to the talk show. Welcome home,
Thank
brother. And Kamalo, I'm glad that you were able to work through your technical difficulties and eventually make it here tonight. And of course, Chris Morrison, as always, it's an honor to have you in the studio with us. And with that, viewers, if you heard something that you like to love, we invite you to share it out with your friends and family. Help us grow our channel. Help us grow our show, reaching more men and women. And with that, unless there's anything else anybody needs to say right here, right now, so let's put a pretty bow on the show and call it a wrap. And with that, viewers, we'll catch you next week on Real Men, Real Talk, Live.